Good morning, everyone. My name here is Tyler Epping. We are going to get started on this webinar here shortly. So just give us a couple minutes as we wait for the last couple people to get logged in. All right, we'll get started. So yeah, we're going to be talking about migrating to the cloud here today and how E1's platform really fits into your data migration projects. As I had mentioned before, my name is Tyler Epping. I am the Popdock evangelist here at E1 Solutions. And just to kind of set the agenda here for today, I have a couple slides here where we're just going to talk about our E1 platform and again where we play into data migration products or projects. I do have a brief demo that I'll kind of highlight our Popdock Data Lake upload tool, which is the tool we use to assist with archiving historical data um, um, in your migration projects. And then we'll end here with a short Q&A and go over any questions that you guys might have. But yeah, just getting into data migration. So as you are probably aware, our E1 Solutions has two kind of products that tie into your data migration product or projects in Smart Connect and Popdock. But when we talk about data migration, we're really asking what type of data are we migrating. As you can see, there's a couple of different classes of data that exist no matter what system you are migrating to and or from and into whatever system you're going to. And it isn't always ERP specific. These types of data really apply to really any types of migrations, whether that be a CRM migration or a project management system migration. But the different classes of data that we see, master data. So think of all of the occasional maintenance items that drive transaction entry. So your customers, your vendors, your items, things of that nature. We also have opening balances. Those are all the things that give the new system its starting point. So think your GL balances, your unpaid receivables and payables transactions, or your unshipped sales orders. And the last component is historical data. And this is really a big one. Historical data is basically everything in the old system that feeds into all of the reporting that drives the decision making. So think of every transaction that isn't open. And where we fit in, so Smart Connect, our traditional integration tool, really handles the master data and opening balances when it comes to data migration. And we have different ways that allow you to pull that existing data, that existing master data, pull it out to potentially like an Excel file, make any modifications that you need if you're, for instance, making any adjustments to your chart of accounts, or making any adjustments to the customer numbers, the vendor numbers. And then we have our Excel add-in that can then push that data into your new system. On the historical data component, we use Popdock. And that's really what we're going to get into here today, how Popdock plays into the historical data migration piece and how that really fits into your total migration package. So when we talk migration, Popdock is really good, and it allows you to really only migrate what is needed. It give you the capability of doing a full database archive with our Popdock Data Lake upload tool, and really give you that full data access in the new system without actually moving that historical data into the new system. Then on top of that, with Popdock, we have the ability to create life-to-date reporting, as we can generate custom lists that merge together your historical data alongside your new data from whatever new system that you're moving into. And the tool that we use to help complete this is our Popdock Data Lake upload tool. And I'm about to demo this here in a second, but just to point out, so with the upload tool, you'll notice that we have processes that can do a full database and view backup for Dynamics GP, NAV, SL, or anything that's really SQL based. We have the capability of really honing into any third-party data, so any ISV or custom solutions that you have built within those systems. The tool is not a developer exercise, so it's something that an IT admin can run against their database and move all of that history. And then last but not least, the tool supports moving data into both an Azure data lake as well as Amazon S3 storage accounts. So I'm going to quickly jump over to a demo here quick, and I'll quickly highlight what this tool looks like in the process that we run to move your historical data. So what I'm showing you right now is our Popdock Data Lake upload tool. And again, we use this tool to essentially move your historical data. And what the tool is essentially doing is it's going to connect into whatever historical ERP that you're running. So again, we have processes for Dynamics GP, SL, NAV, or anything that's really on SQL Server. And it's connecting to the database, and it is extracting either any of your lists out or any tables and views. And it is converting it into a CSV file, and then it is pushing it up into an Azure data lake or an Amazon S3 storage account that you would provision. And then from there, with Popdock, we can connect to that historical data and present it right inside of your new solution, whether that be Business Central or Intacct or NetSuite. Wherever you're moving to, we can give you access to that standalone history in that system. So I'm going to just use an example here, and I'm going to pretend like we're going to run a process to copy all of our smart lists. As you'll notice that for GP and SL, we got a couple of different processes that we run. For GP, we not only run a process that copies all of your smart lists, but we also run a process that would copy the tables and views of your Dynamics database. And again, that's really that entire database backup, ensuring that we are able to capture all of the data within your database, all that historical data when you do move into your new system. So I'm going to select copy the smart list here, and I'm just going to continue. The next step is just really logging into your Popdock account. So I'm just going to log into mine. So this is where we are connecting to the storage account. So as I mentioned before, our Popdock Data Lake upload tool can move historical data to both Azure and Azure Data Lake storage or an Amazon S3 storage account. So you really can choose which one works better for you or more aligns with the systems that you have already pre-set up. So the first step is selecting what data lake connector that you've created in Popdock is connecting to this historical data. You're then putting in the credentials for your storage account. So I'm going to just go with this Azure Data Lake storage account. So you're putting in the name of the storage account, the container that you've created within Azure, and then your share key to connect to that data lake. Now, in the case of GP, the next step is, and actually really with all the systems, the next step is connecting to the database. But with GP, you're actually going to select your version. You can see that we go all the way back to GP9. So we do cover a range of different versions. If you do have something pre-GP9, that's just something that you'll want to just contact us here at E1 Solutions, and we potentially will still be able to connect to that data. Just we'll have some additional configuration to do. But I'm going to select my version here, which is GP 2018. You're then putting in the credentials for your the server that Dynamics database is sitting on. So put in the server name, the port that we're working through, the name of the system database, which in our case is GP Dynamics, and then a username and password. Now, you'll notice that I did have an SA user here. You don't necessarily need to have an SA user in order to connect. It just needs to be a user that has read level access to the system database and the company databases. But once you put in these credentials, you'll hit connect. The next step is selecting companies. So you may have some test companies or some companies that you don't necessarily need to archive. you have the option of selecting what companies that this tool is going to move the data for. So in this example, I'm just going to use one of my companies. I'll just select my Fabricam company. And then we'll go to the next section, which is selecting lists. So again, the process that we're running here is copying all of the smart lists. So this is grabbing every standard smart list that you have, anything that you've built with Smart List Builder will all populate in here. You have the ability to control what list you want to move. I think we see a lot of people just moving all of them, but if you do want to be more selective and move the ones that you primarily use and need, you have the full capability of going in and individually selecting those lists. Now I'm just going to select a couple of them for this example here. Let me just try to find a range of them here. We'll just go with those three. So once you've selected the list, you then hit run, and then the process is going to get started. And essentially what the tool, again, is doing, it is connecting to every single one of the lists. It is converting that list into a CSV file, and then it is pushing it up into the Azure Data Lake storage account that you had put the credentials in for within this tool. And then from there, once these lists are up inside of the data lake with Amazon or an Azure Data Lake connector, Popdock can then grab any of those lists and share it wherever you want to see it. But as you can see there, during the run process, there was kind of a run that was being generated that was telling you how or where in the process this tool was based on the number of transactions, which are essentially the number of lists that you're running. At the very end, you'll get this report, and it basically tells you what the status of each of those lists are. Now, all three of the lists that I selected all have a success status, meaning that all of these were moved up into the data lake with no errors. There are a couple of other statuses that you might see within the tool. There is a skip status. That would be for any list that does not have any records in it. As long the tool will recognize that and it'll skip over that. We also have a status that has failed. So if there was any error and for whatever reason the tool was not able to move that list, it would say failed here. You would be able to see the reason for the failure, and you can also view the logs if you want more detail on why that list had failed. You then have the ability to go in and make any corrections needed to that list, and then you could individually retry that list and retry it to move that data into the data lake. So this is what the tool looks like. You know, it's a fairly simple process, and it's, again, really more so for that historical data, getting all of your historical transactional data up into Azure Data Lake so that you can then access it in whatever system that you're moving to once you get to that point with Popdock.